sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name is Virginia Jones. I'm a stand-up comedian. My sister, Laura Ryan, is a therapist.
Hello, my name is Laura Ryan. I am sister to comic entertainment Virginia Jones, licensed marriage and family therapist.
We are very excited about coming up on our 50th episode. That's when our podcast service gives us a special Scooby snack and lets us know that we're good girls.
And lets us know that you guys are listening. Today, I got bored and looked at all the cities that are listening to us. It's a lot of cities, and it's a lot of cities. It's a lot of folks in a lot of cities.
We did an episode recently with a wonderful, very knowledgeable guest who said, "Oh, but this doesn't apply to Texas." I'm like, we're not just Texas-based.
We're all over the world.
We're worldwide.
We're international.
This week, Laura is bringing our topic. Laura, what are we talking about this week?
So the topic today is hypnosis real?
Okay.
What do you know about hypnosis, Virg?
I've certainly learned a lot about hypnosis through knowing a professional hypnotist. I used to think of it as a magic trick or like a superpower. You know, my experience of it was a lot of times comedian, magician, hypnotists who would make someone eat an onion like it was an apple or squawk like a chicken whenever you said the word nincompoop. And I myself had experienced hypnosis just in sleepover type situations with other little girls.
That sounds very sus.
It was pretty sus, but I'm pretty sure I was hypnotized when my sister, Laura Ryan, started training in hypnosis. And like every other skill, it was something she needed to do on many people to get good at it. And she asked me if I would like to be hypnotized for something. And I told her I didn't trust her as far as I could throw her because I didn't want to make a siren noise every time a fire truck came by or similar.
So you're working with the misconception that clinical hypnosis and stage hypnosis are the same thing.
Right. It was a party trick. Now I think of hypnosis as a tool. I think of it more like meditation.
The way that I explain it to people, it's like guided meditation with intent. So
pointing it somewhere.
Right. It's not just, I'm going to accept what's in my environment. It's what can I do to change and shift my perspective on things? I am guiding you through the whole process. You're not doing it on your own at all. I'm taking you through the steps and I'm kind of holding your hand the whole way through.
Why don't you give people your bona fides? I know that you've helped hundreds of people quit smoking.
I would say at this point, it's probably thousands, literally.
Jeez Louise.
I started in 2000. That was a lot of years ago. And if you think about the fact that I was working at that point from 9 to 8 solidly every day for years, I mean, do the math. It's a lot of people. What are my bona fides? I became a certified hypnotherapist in 2001. That was kind of how I cut my teeth on the world of therapy. What I was realizing when I was doing it professionally is, wow, these folks have really big problems. I am not equipped to help them with any of them.
What you were telling me at the time was hypnosis is really good at quitting smoking. Hypnosis can be good at reducing impulsive behaviors. Hypnosis can be really good at breaking habits. But people would come to you and, can you please hypnotize me back to loving my husband? And we're bringing you bigger problems than hypnosis can deal with.
Right. Can you help me with this phobia that developed in my early childhood because of constant SA? So that's what I was facing. And that's what inspired me to go back to school, because in the hypnosis center where I worked, God bless them, they basically said, don't ever talk about the past. All of what we're doing is in the present, because the past is what psychotherapists are here to do. And you're not a psychotherapist.
That's an interesting division and a very cut and dry division. You are dealing with current situations and problems. It is not your place to talk about anything that happened before this moment.
Right. And it was very difficult to stick with that because it's just natural. If you're talking about a problem, it probably started before yesterday. And so there's a long history of said problem that needs to be dealt with. How long do you think hypnosis has been a thing?
I'm going to guess that hypnosis started around Freud times.
Ancient hypnosis started over 5,000 years ago. from the time of Egypt's Old Kingdom. The Temple of Imhotep in the ancient city of Saqqara was an important healing center in late 3rd century BCE. So they had these things called sleep temples where you would go in and everyone would kind of lay down and they would burn ancient herbs and kind of guide you into meditative state. Notable among these practices is a tradition called temple sleep. Ailing individuals would journey to the temple in search of a cure from the gods. After long rituals involving the ingestion of herbs, hours of rhythmic recitation of prayers, the individual was led to a special darkened chamber to sleep and await a dream revealing a cure.
But these are not psychoactive herbs like we have talked about before.
I don't know.
They might be.
Maybe. Psychoactive herbs have been around as long as man has been around. The practice eventually spread to Greece, where special sleep temples were built, dedicated to the god of healing, Asclepius. Ailing individuals journeyed to the temple to undergo the proper rituals and dream of a cure in a sleep chamber, which was filled with snakes. A symbol of the god. We can now understand the divine answers and feelings of reassurance experienced by ancient peoples as the product of sensory overload.
Another cool thing about Asclepius is that he was known as someone who could cure snake bite, which in the ancient world was like one of the most dangerous things that could happen to you. If you get by a snake, just like lay down and wait for it to be over.
That's it.
That's it. Say goodbye to your loved ones. He was symbolized by a staff with a snake wrapped around it, which is where the caduceus comes from, that still symbolizes medicine today, because that doctor is going to cure your snake bite.
Have you heard of oracles?
I have heard of oracles.
Well, the use of hypnotic...
Someone told me that you were going to be talking about oracles today.
An oracle told you? Like sleep temples in Egypt and Greece, individual expectation and overload were essential ingredients for both the oracle and the subject. These were accomplished through preparatory processes, including the drinking of herbal mixtures, and being led by priests through chambers filled with candles and brightly painted images. The result of this process, the oracle, was a heightened suggestibility in the mind of the subject, creating a receptive environment for a profound emotional experience. This was early days hypnosis.
And like oracles would tell you all kinds of stuff. Oedipus, the oracle told him, hey, you're going to kill your dad.
Hey, you're going to develop this weird complex that everyone's going to talk about forever.
You're going to sleep with your mom. And I saw a really cool production of Oedipus just last year. And the whole point of it is not you're going to kill your dad and sleep with your mom. The whole point of it is you cannot escape fate, because he does everything he can. He leaves the town he lives in. He meets other people. But he doesn't know that his dad already got rid of him so that he wouldn't kill his dad. And so it was a double bind. You can't do anything when the gods are concerned.
You can't tempt fate when it comes to the gods.
I learned this recently. We did an episode a little while ago about birth order. According to psychologist Alfred Adler, the only child is the most susceptible to Oedipal syndrome because they're in competition only with their parents. They don't have any other brothers and sisters to compete with.
That tracks. That makes sense. I mean, I haven't experienced Oedipal syndrome, but I have experienced what it's like when there is no one else competing.
Yep.
When I have dated men, it has been difficult because it's been a direct competition.
Yes.
Finite resources.
Right. You only got one mom, and now you're sharing her with some dude.
With some guy.
So what happened after oracles?
So you were on the right track with Freud, because really the person who brought hypnosis into what we would call Western culture is Franz Anton Mesmer. Have you heard the term mesmerism?
Sure.
Mesmer's dissertation at the University of Vienna borrowed heavily from the works of British physician Richard Mead, suggesting the gravitational attraction of the planets affect human health by affecting an invisible fluid found in the human body and throughout nature. In 1775, Mesmer revised his theory in animal gravitation to one of animal magnetism, wherein the invisible fluid in the body acted according to the laws of magnetism. And animal magnetism could be activated by any magnetized object and manipulated by any trained person. Disease was a result of obstacles in the fluid's flow through the body, and obstacles could be broken by crises, which has something to do with trance.
So I have a couple things to discuss. One, it's not so crazy to think that the planets are affecting our moods and emotions and illnesses, because people still talk about the moon and how it affects women in particular. Two, mesmerized, it's the same thing as sanforized, which I didn't realize that it was just some guy's name. Sanforized is a kind of dry cleaning, I believe.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
But also that animal magnetism is not being attracted to a person because of your base animal state, its liquids in your body
It's
are
the fluid. It's
magnetized.
the fluid flow,
The invisible liquids in my body are magnetized to the invisible liquids in your body.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great pickup line. Please use that for free on us.
I'm gonna start using it
Hey, baby.
probably all the time.
Are the
But yes.
invisible liquids in your body attracted to the invisible liquids in my body?
Yes, 100%. Dr. David Spiegel, a Stanford University psychiatrist and leading researcher of hypnosis, said that it's been in various forms for centuries, but it wasn't until 1843 where Dr. James Braid popularized the term hypnosis. Braid's central discovery, the concentration can guide the brain towards a more suggestible state, was and remains somewhat controversial. But physicians have continued to test and teach the technique over the centuries with great success, Spiegel says.
19th century, just like I said.
Well, that's what I said. You were on the right track,
Thank you.
You were off by 5,000 years.
Just 5,000 years. Not a big deal.
Because when it came into popularity in Western culture was that time period. So the result is a powerful combination of dissociation, immersion, and openness to new experiences, which culminates in what was once called a trance, but which modern therapists simply refer to as a hypnotic state. It can be achieved in just a few minutes, Spiegel says.
We've talked about a hypnotic state being like a suggestible state. It's a state in which you are open to information. Your radix is down.
What I have observed in my informal clinical study is that when someone is in a more relaxed, calm place and we can kind of activate different parts of the brain in a new way, they're more open to suggestion.
And then hypnosis, the word itself, goes back to the Greeks, hypnos, the god of sleep.
According to APA, Uncovering the New Science of Clinical Hypnosis by Kristen Weir, hypnosis has certain historical mystique that can sometimes make it difficult for us to understand modern relevance. David Godot, PsyD, a clinical psychologist in Long Beach, California, clinical hypnosis has clear benefits in psychotherapy, improving outcomes in areas such as pain management, anxiety, depression, sleep, and more. Over the past few decades, there have been tremendous advances in understanding hypnosis and its benefit for research and practice. Our brains soak up information from the environment, combining it with prior beliefs and experiences and memories to form a conscious experience of a moment, says Afik Behrman, PhD, a postdoc fellow in clinical neuropsychology at Stanford University. So what do you make of that?
It's interesting to track the progression between treating it as a message from the gods or something magical to just being more of a tool that we can understand and harness.
Well, yeah, I think it has to do with obviously differences in culture and knowledge. When you understand more about how the brain works and you don't think it's just fluids.
Right. Magnetized fluids.
Magnetized fluids.
So in a practical sense, after your years of experience, what are the things and purposes that hypnosis is best at?
Well, I think that, we all have our specialties and I have the things that I like to work on best. There are people who help with pain management. I don't like that one. I'm not very good at it. My favorites are phobias, stopping smoking, any kind of impulse control behavior like trichotillomania, nail biting, skin picking, any of those I really enjoy. It's fairly cut and dry and pretty simple. Because what happens during hypnosis is activity in a brain region that helps people switch between tasks kind of quiets down. Spiegel says this. The same region seems to disconnect from other areas responsible for self-reflection and daydreaming, which may be why hypnotized people aren't worried about what they're doing. So researchers have also found that hypnosis can calm brain regions that help control autonomic functions like heart rate, blood flow, and breathing. This is likely what leads to the physical relaxation that is a hallmark of hypnosis.
I'm remembering now that my theater teacher used to do a guided meditation / hypnosis with us before shows, after big events. And I came out of those things, even as a kid, I came out of those things so relaxed and rubbery and malleable. I craved it. I wanted her to do it all the time because I felt so good.
Actually, my first experience with hypnosis was with your ex-boyfriend, Billy. He just said, do you want to try this cool thing? And it was emptying your body, just carving out anything inside your body, dumping it out, and then filling it up with lead and feeling that heavy, heavy feeling in your body. I still use the technique to this day.
Well, thank you, Billy from Allen, Texas. So, when we talk about quieting down the mind, that again leads back to ego death and what we were talking about in our ketamine and mushrooms episode.
Absolutely. All of this stuff, especially when they're talking about ancient stuff,
Mhm.
it reminds me of, what we're doing now. You go out to Brazil and do this medicine, thing.
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, exactly. Obviously, I haven't done it. I can't even tell you what it's called.
Like, we went down and did this profound ayahuasca ceremony. And I talked to my ancestors, and they told me I needed to change commercial agents.
What area of the world are your ancestors from? Norway or Sweden?
When you were training in hypnosis, one of your tasks was to bring your boss a phobia for you to work on. And wasn't it your fear of possums?
No, I have held on to that fear. That's a healthy, natural fear
Wait.
because they're demons. The thing that I worked on was my driving phobia.
Mm.
When I was younger, I had a long distance relationship, an LDR, which required me to drive out
A
of
lot.
town quite a bit. Yeah. And so when I was leaving town, I would be overcome with nausea and stomach pain and dizziness, and it was horrible. So that happened to me every time I would leave basically the city limits, or as I was preparing to leave the city limits, that would happen. That was the first thing I addressed with hypnosis was my driving phobia. And I can safely say that I am cured.
Yeah, that's awesome. All these years later, you're still having a positive benefit.
I think that's another kind of misconception that things are going to come back. Once you've retrained your brain, there's really no coming back. I mean,
think
of course, you
people-
can relapse with smoking, but you have to make a concerted effort to make that happen.
That brings me to another question I had. My first question that I do want to resolve is, what do you think opossums are going to do to you?
I don't want to think about it, and I don't want to talk about it.
I know that you've had many, many, many successes. I think people have the idea that hypnosis can make you do stuff, that you can brute force it, and you absolutely can't. I remember in general, you were telling me about a patient who didn't follow your instructions, kept cigarettes in their car, kept cigarettes in their house, and then kept relapsing and saying, well, I guess this hypnosis doesn't work.
And what I said to them is, you have to participate in the process.
Like-
It's not like a magic spell.
Right.
You have to engage in the process. And that's one of the biggest issues that I have experienced, not lately, but in the past. I'm very hardcore about telling my clients that not only are you going to come to your appointments, but you're going to listen to your hypnosis session morning, midday, and evening every day. And when I really started to be very, very clear about that, I stopped having people with problems. When you're taking time 3 times a day to calm the F down and focus on your goals,
it works. There's also the idea of the person who is impossible to hypnotize, the person whose mind is so
this is
strong.
such a lie. When I was doing research for this, there's all these things on, are you more susceptible or less susceptible? Everyone's susceptible.
Right.
We're all susceptible. I can tell you in my professional career of literally working with thousands of people, there has been one person who was not willing to engage. One.
Now, was that someone who did they seek out the treatment themselves or were they sent?
She sought it out, but she had extreme anxiety and it was a heights anxiety. And at that point, my office was in a building that was on the 5th floor, which I guess she didn't check out beforehand. And so she was just freaking out the whole appointment because she couldn't really tolerate being up high. Every person on this planet is getting hypnotized every second of every day. Anytime you're driving and you zone out and you don't know where you were, that's a trance state. It's called highway hypnosis. Every time I get on TikTok shop, because I've seen the same 18 sweatshirts.
This is a real problem. This is a real problem, guys.
Yeah, I'm being hypnotized. I'm being influenced. That's what's happening.
If there's anybody at TikTok that can keep my sister's feed clean of TikTok shop, everything in her house is
I
from
am
TikTok.
100% supporting TikTok. If they didn't have me, they would shut down in an instant. I'm spending every dime I make at TikTok shop.
So we're talking about driving. Like, what are some other naturally occurring trance states?
If you ever find yourself, you're having a massage and you're kind of zoning out and time sort of stops, that's a trance state. If you don't know how long it's been, that's what I experience a lot with new clients. How long was that session? Was that 1 minute? I'm like, no,
Right.
it was 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You lose time because you're in a different place mentally.
back to the idea of someone who cannot be hypnotized. I hear men say it, and it's such a strange, funny idea to me. And what do you think that's about? Like that your brain is like a lockbox? Your brain is so impenetrable?
Honestly, most of the people who have suggested that I could not hypnotize them are men. The reason that they're saying that is because it's rooted in patriarchy. I'm so strong and I can't be influenced by people. Being influenced by people is less masculine somehow,
Right.
even though men are some of the most influenced of any group.
Oh, 100%. Why is your truck so big? Why do you think you have to eat red meat all the time? Why are you smoking yourself into an early grave? Because you're being influenced by other people.
Exactly. Why do you and all your friends have the same shirt?
Why are you eating chicken wings every Friday night?
I mean, that's
That's a whole other thing.
One of the other things that hypnosis can be used for is anesthetic. I have had in the past some clients who were allergic to anesthesia and needed to have a surgery or, dental work done, and they needed anesthetic. So,
Wow.
yeah, I actually used it myself. I made a recording of myself doing hypnosis when I gave birth to my dude, and it was super helpful because I think the experience, I can't speak for other women, but for me, the experience of giving birth was incredibly stressful and panic inducing. I had a pregnancy that did not go by my birth plan. And it was not good. When I found out that I was going to have an emergency C-section, I asked everyone to leave the room and I put on the hypnosis and I just sort of guided myself there. And then I asked them if they would play it in the operating room, and they did.
Adding to the many purposes of hypnosis, of anesthetic, which is insane. That's so great. Common reasons people have sought out hypnotherapy for depression, anxiety, phobias, which you've experienced, confidence and self-esteem issues, prolonged grief, procrastination, public speaking, addictions, trauma, pain relief, negative memories, insomnia. Do you think that hypnosis can be helpful in addiction if we're talking like real drug or alcohol addiction?
Yeah, I have a lot of clients who come to me for that. Like alcohol cessation is another one of my specialties, and drug addiction, but it's because I'm a therapist.
Right.
Like,
right. It's you got to have the 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I think when people came to me as just a hypnotist who had no training and, addiction, it wasn't a good match. That was one of the things that I didn't have the skills to proceed with. And so that's why I went back to school.
Here's a fact that I found that I like. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Yeah.
Your hypnotherapist is guiding you, but you are hypnotizing yourself.
Right. And also, when I do hypnosis, I am hypnotizing myself because the way that I was trained is you go first. So I induce a trance state in myself and then I take you with me.
Oh, I don't think that's things people commonly know. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because I have to be able to enter the world that I'm creating for you. And I can't do that if I'm not in a trance.
Another like day-to-day hypnosis state is being really engrossed in a TV show or film. When you find something so absorbing, I think that that's a good benchmark that you've mentioned when you're not aware of time passing.
Right. And if that's happening a lot, you may have dissociative identity disorder because that's also a marker for that. If you find yourself being so engrossed in a film or a book and not understanding that time is expanding around you because you're dissociated.
You mentioned dissociation as being part of the hypnosis cocktail. Will you talk a little bit about positive and negative dissociation?
Well, if you're using dissociation to deal with everyday life, it's probably
a problem.
Not the move. And if it's happening spontaneously without your consent or without a plan from you, it's probably not good. We dissociate all the time. If I'm doing something that's physically painful, if I'm at the gym, I will dissociate from my body and try not to be there and kind of go off on a cloud. Circling back to the pain medication, Lorenzo Cohen, not to be confused with Leonard Cohen, the director of Integrative Medicine Program at the University of Texas, shout out MD Anderson. Studies have shown that people who received hypnosedation experienced less preoperative anxiety, required less pain medication during surgery, and reported less post-operative pain intensity, nausea, fatigue, and discomfort than people who chose general anesthetic. The hypothesis is that patients who are under general anesthesia, even though they're not conscious, are having an intense stress response. This can suppress an immune system that in cancer patients is already compromised by disease and its treatment. So when patients choose hypnosis, Cohen believes the body's fight or flight response may be reduced.
I want to ask you this. On television, people are sometimes hypnotized to remember things in the past. and sometimes are hypnotized and remember past lives. What are your thoughts about those ideas?
It's a no for me, dog. I can't really bag on it completely because my introduction to hypnosis was past life regression because my father and his wife were
Right.
attending weekly past life regression appointments. And I said, hey, I want to do that. And it was cool. And
Mhm.
it kind of led me to choosing to work in hypnosis after I graduated from college because I was looking in the want ads and I was like, hey, I thought hypnosis was fun. Maybe I'll go work there.
That's awesome. So many ways that the weird behavior of our dad put you on your path.
I think inadvertently, he really has guided my whole life in lots of different ways. I guess he did his job. And also,
Yep.
if you're playing the drinking game where you drink every time we mention our dad, you feel free to have a sip.
Enjoy.
So, circling back to the combo effect of cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnosis, research dating back 3 decades found that hypnosis could enhance the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy. An updated meta analysis showed that when the two were combined, they had small to medium but statistically significant advantage over just CBT alone for managing depression and managing pain. Another analysis found that hypnosis was more effective in reducing anxiety when combined with other psychological interventions than when it was used alone.
What I'm hearing is that hypnosis is, again, a tool, an addendum, something that is helpful as an additive to cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes. That's why I think, no offense to folks who are hypnotists without a degree. I mean, obviously, that's where I started. I just think when we start opening this Pandora's box, there's a lot of stuff that comes up. And if you don't have the training or knowledge, you could really mess things up for somebody.
One of those dangers is implanted memories, right? What are other possible negative effects of someone without a background in therapy using this tool?
It's just very sensitive. And I think I was properly trained as a hypnotist, but I was not properly trained as a therapist.
Right.
It's kind of like, okay, we're going to open up this chest. We're going to start digging stuff out. Oh, we didn't expect that. What do we do with that? And I just constantly felt shocked and confused. I was not helpful when it came to more complicated things. And people are complicated and problems are complicated and they're historical and there's a lot going on. According to the Center for Success, here's some famous people who have used hypnosis. Mozart apparently composed the famous opera Così fan tutte while he was hypnotized. Albert Einstein was known to go into trance through self-hypnosis every day. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
His theory of relativity came to him during one of his sessions. He also used trance states to develop his ideas. Jackie Kennedy Onassis used hypnotherapy to relive and let go of tragic events in her life. Did she have
What
any
kind
of
of
those?
what kind of tragic event did she experience? That's
I mean,
weird.
I don't get it. She seemed to have a pretty
Box of chocolate, right.
pretty chill experience. Yeah, she was just eating bonbons most of the time. Kate Middleton used hypnobirthing to stay calm during her births.
Something that you and Kate Middleton have in common.
We both have brown hair and we did a hypnobirth.
And you've
So,
both been married to British balds.
and you were talking about self-confidence. That is another thing that I like to help people with. Reese Witherspoon, the 38-year-old actress, said that after years of being told she was too fat or short for Hollywood roles, it had taken a toll on her self-esteem. So she turned to hypnosis for a confidence boost before taking the role of Cheryl Strayed in the film Wild.
Amazing.
And last but not least, Helen Reddy, the I Am Woman
Hear me roar.
singer-songwriter, she was a practicing clinical hypnotherapist based in Sydney. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Unfortunately, as I was doing some research, I found out that Helen Reddy is not alive anymore.
Yeah, sorry. I had to.
It was a little bit
sorry,
of
I
a
had to find that out.
bubble burst 2020 dementia. And also, this is a very clinical article that I read in the Sun magazine
Great science.
called Someone Like New, Adele's Weight Loss. Meet her 390 an hour hypnotherapist that helps A-list stars like Jennifer Aniston shed pounds by Lydia Hawken. Adele, according to celebrity hypnotherapist Susan Hepburn, allegedly first sought help to overcome her 2014 smoking habit and then kind of transitioned out to weight loss. I also don't like working with weight loss either because it's super complicated. There's a
Right.
million factors. I like a one and done. Are you biting your nails? Are you not biting your nails? Are you smoking cigarettes? Are you not smoking cigarettes? Are you drinking alcohol? Are you not drinking alcohol?
You and I have talked about stage magicians and stage hypnosis, and comics hate stage hypnosis as much as anybody. But what do you dislike about it?
I hate it. No offense to stage hypnotists, but it really does kind of sully You know, it makes it feel very unserious and like it's some kind of joke.
Like it can scare people because the idea is that you can be made to do things you don't want to do or that wouldn't be normal for you to do.
Right. And what I always tell people is I actually knew a person who was a stage hypnotist. He was the owner of that company that I used to work for,
Oh my Lord.
like the main guy.
Oh my Lanta.
So he did hypnosis on stage, and he said the way that he did it is you start off with a stage full of people. You know, there's 100 people or something on the stage. And then he said you just start sorting out the people who are less inclined to go with it, right? What he said is you find somebody who could have half a beer and then put like a lampshade on their head because they like attention. You try to lean into those folks, and that's why you end up with, at the end, it's like 2 or 3 people. That's why he's sending people off stage because they're not as engaged and they're not as willing to take risks.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've also had a thing where I'll be listening to a podcast and someone will make a reference to a trance or hypnosis and they will say, do not listen to this in the car.
Yes, I can speak to that personally. I remember when I was working at the hypnosis center, we had a cassette that I think had an imperfection in the recording or something. So my boss said, like, hey, could you listen to this when you're home and tell me where it is and we can, you know, make a change to it. So I was listening to it in the car and I just suddenly realized I didn't know where I was.
Oh my God.
I quickly ejected. Don't listen to this in the car. What I used to tell people when I had CDs was my name's on there and I don't want to be responsible for that.
I cannot have the fire department pull my name out of the CD player.
Exactly. Hypnosis TC made a little article about the difference between stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy. The main difference between stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy is the expected outcome. Stage hypnotists aim to put on a show for volunteers and an audience to have fun. Also, stage hypnotists give suggestions that only last for the duration of the show and are removed after the volunteers are quote unquote awakened at the end. In contrast, a hypnotherapist aims to help clients reach a personal goal, whether it's becoming more confident, giving up smoking, getting better sleep, losing weight, or any other number of things that the client may want to work on. The hypnotherapist gives suggestions that are intended to remain beyond the session. They're called post-hypnotic suggestions in order that the client experience long-term change in the various aspects of their life. So one's for entertainment and the hypnotic suggestions are temporary. The other's for long-term personal change and development.
I want to speak to something that's on the list of things that are good purposes for hypnosis. Fear of public speaking.
Absolutely. That is my bread and butter.
Because like, yeah, you know, if you work in a company, if you belong to a church, like there's so many places in life where you're going to need to do public speaking and people are so hilariously frightened of it. My understanding of this fear goes back to caveman stuff, that humans were so weak and crappy hunters compared to tigers. We needed to band together for survival. And if you did something or said something that got you kicked out of the tribe, it was life or death. People are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying in an airplane crash or dying in a car crash or like much more likely scenarios.
I think Jerry Seinfeld had the joke, you would rather be in the coffin than be speaking the eulogy.
But a funny effect of that on like comedy is that people will come up to me after a show, and just a little primer for people who go to comedy shows. If you come up to a comic after a show, what we want to hear was 1, that was really funny. 2, you're really funny.
3, I love your dress.
3, I love your dress. I'll take that. But what people like to say a lot is, I could never do what you do because I'm so scared of public speaking.
No one asked.
No one wants you to. You would probably stink at it because you would be very new. It is not necessary to tell me I am brave. I am not brave. I am doing comedy because I am very funny.
You're doing comedy for a very complicated reason that we can't cover in this session. When I work with people on stage fright, public speaking phobia, what I really focus on is we're all in this together. It's not me presenting to people and asking for people's approval. Because you're right. I remember our younger sister Emily took a class about religion. And one of the things was like a global fear that every group has, but has a different name for it. So Inuit culture, there's this fear of basically being, I think it was called like a walking ghost, which means you've been rejected from the tribe because you're not going to survive. You can't live in frozen hellscape by yourself. My understanding of what happens when you have stage fright is that you're stepping up in front of people, you're separate from them. And if you think about historically when that happened generally to people, it was when they were about to be assassinated. So it's not really a thing that we want to be doing.
Wow. You're stepping up to the noose. You're stepping up to the squad. Interesting.
It's not a good thing to be elevated above
Wow. I'm going to have to chew on that one.
One of my favorite stories about stage hypnosis, there was an interview with Carly Simon in Rolling Stone magazine. A psychologist went through this questionnaire to describe fear of public speaking phobia. She didn't perform for like 10 years because she was so phobic about this. And so they had her and Bruce Springsteen sit down and fill out the same questionnaire and describe what going on stage was for them. And so when you look at the symptoms are identical. They both experience like a tightness in their chest and accelerated heart rate, et cetera, et cetera. But he defined it as excitement and she defined it as fear.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I have learned and used, that everyone's going to experience elevated heart rate, the physical arousal, not in a sexy way. Your body is switched on, and you have to frame it as, I am excited to get on stage. I'm excited to communicate. I'm excited to connect with these people, not I am scared out of my wits.
Right. I'm excited
it's the same stuff.
to share. It's the same thing. But I mean, I think that that's where hypnosis comes in, because when I work with clients, that's what I work on reminding them of. Like, you're here to share your vision. You're here to help others. You're here to spread the word, whatever. In closing, Mike Lifshitz, PhD, unfortunate name, and assistant professor of psychiatry at McGill University, co-author of this review, he says, it's almost as if you're letting your usual ways of making sense of the world relax and soften. So that's what hypnosis is for him, making space for something new to emerge. Feyerman says, more psychotherapists should consider adding hypnosis to their clinical skills. Hypnosis is such a loaded term, and people in professional settings are sometimes uncomfortable with it because of its associations with entertainment. Feyerman said, but not learning about it is a mistake for clinical psychology. This is a tool that can improve the lives of our patients in a safe and evidence-based way.
But also, in Laura's opinion, you should not just train a bunch of hypnotists the way you train a bunch of hairdressers.
No, my background and training were very unusual. On the job training, it really was. Like, they basically threw you in at the deep end. My trainer would watch all of my sessions. They videotaped every session, and he would watch me and tell me where I messed up. So it was really helpful. And then when I went on to become a therapist in school, they did the same thing. They would film my sessions, and then I would come out and they would tell me how badly I'd done. Basically, they all told me that I needed to work on controlling my facial expressions. I still haven't done that.
Still have a problem with it. Big problems.
I think the problem I have with a person who's a hypnotist is that they don't have enough training. It's usually a weekend course. There's not follow-up. Like, every certification I've had, except for that one, I've had to go back and do additional training. There's other stuff that's going on all the time. One of my secret wishes at some point is to create a clinical hypnotherapy program for therapists, but I haven't done it yet. So, Virginia, in closing, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
Well, because you're my sister and I've known you a long time, I really thought I knew a lot about hypnosis, but I've learned a lot about, its history, which I clearly did not know, and like kind of the subtleties of what it is that you're getting at when you're getting into a trance state and what the various uses of a trance state are good for. After doing this overview with me, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I can't say that I've learned a lot.
Right. I wouldn't think that you did.
But I can say, actually, the one thing that was really interesting was the anesthetic thing, because I didn't realize that when you are in general anesthetic, that your body does have a stress response. So that was cool to find out. And I was also excited to find out that there are a lot of clinical studies using hypnotherapy. When I first started out in this game, there really weren't. People just really poo-pooed it. So I'm glad it's getting its due. I do think it's a very useful tool. And, obviously I use it all the time. But again, circling back, I really think if you're a therapist, this would be a great thing for you to have training in. If you're not a therapist, you should consider going to school.
So if someone wants to go into therapy with hypnosis as a tool with you, where can they find you on the internet?
If you want to find me on the internet, you can find me at lauraryan.org. You can also check out my TikTok. I am Laura Ryan. If you're interested in interacting with the show, we have an Instagram page, My Sister's a Therapist. We have our website, mysistersatherapist.com. And if you want to email us or reach out to the show, you can reach us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. We do read your emails, as evidenced by our imposter syndrome episode, where our whole topic was based on an email from a listener. Virginia Jones, where do people find you on the internet?
You can find me at my website, bedinia.com. You can find me at my Instagram, Bedinia. And I wish you would Laura, this is the part of the show where sometimes you will read a listener comment or review. I do want to take a moment to say how much we enjoy when you write us reviews, and especially when you do it on the Apple Podcast platform. Laura, do you have something to share this week?
I certainly do.
I'm so glad.
This is a 5-star review, my favorite kind.
Thank you.
From Tony S. I wish my sister was a therapist. Me too.
You want me to be a therapist as well? Don't you think you'd be in competition?
No, I've already won. So my sister's a therapist makes me wish that I had a better relationship with my younger sister so that I had an excuse to talk about my feelings, bond over mutual and conflicting interests, and make a podcast about it. I have an older sister too, but she's just okay at best. Sorry, Tony. Laura and Virginia are thoughtful and hysterically insightful on the topics they cover. I look forward to the weekly cultural theme and its correlating psychological breakdown and deep dives. Laura's credentials and therapeutic podcast voice provide a safe space to digest the topic at hand, while Virginia offers a very real world punch to the face that is delivered through humor and heart. Topics that I look forward to possibly hearing about. 1, why do I keep sleeping with men who have the same name as my father? 2, I have a mole on my shoulder that changes color with my mood, a mood mole, if you will. Is this something I should consult a dermatologist about or a therapist or both? 3, a musical episode. No joke. Both of these women have phenomenal musical pipes. I would like an episode that is entirely sung. Musical episodes are so in. 4, am I dating a narcissist or am I a narcissist? 5, pets. An episode of what your pet says about your personality type. Anyway, looking forward to every episode. Please keep them coming. Thank you so much, Tony. That was very extensive.
That was incredible. And I just want to say, if you do have a pet that you're obsessed with who's a beautiful white wolf, I think it's because you're a very strong and independent and slightly insane person.
See, Virginia is using her psychic abilities yet again. She somehow knows what Tony S.'s dog is like. If you would like to hire us to speak at your women's conference, mental health conference, women's leadership event, wellness event, etc., please reach out at hire us at mysistersatherapist.com. In the immortal words of Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, we can make it, baby.
Me and you. Bye-bye.
Bye.